Okay, welcome back, everybody. What I want you to make sure that you have open is this other document that I told you was on your assignment today called the Anatomy of a Quadratic Function Summary. Okay, it has on here everything that you have learned so far, with the exception of the discriminant. Is what should have on your assessment Friday. If you have this sheet readily available to look at while you're doing assessment. Okay, so I will be referencing things on this sheet as I go through the next two problems. So let's start with the first one. It says Jody tosses a penny off a bridge in the water below. The distance in feet the penny is above the water is modeled by the equation y equals a negative 16x squared plus 96x plus 250. The x represents time in seconds. What is the greatest height of the penny? Okay, so by looking at this already, we know just by looking at my a value right here that since it is negative, that means I have a parabola that is going to be opening downward. Okay? And so what I'm looking for here is the vertex, which is right up here. And the vertex is going to be an ordered pair. So the first thing that I need to do is for the x value, which if you look at your anatomy sheet to find x, we have x equals a negative b over 2a. So what I simply do then is substitute my values in. So that's going to be 96, which is my b value, over 2 times a negative 16. So then I now have negative 96 by negative 32, which is going to equal a positive 3. So that means my x value is a positive 3. So the first point in the ordered pair of that vertex is going to be a 3. So then now what I do is take the function of y equals the negative 16x squared, and I'm going to substitute 3 every place I see an x. I have negative 16 times 3 squared plus 96 times 3 plus 250. So as I do this math, I get an answer of y equals a negative 144 plus 288 plus 250. As I add all these numbers up, my answer now becomes y equals 394. All right, so my ordered pair then for the vertex is going to be 394, which means that the greatest height of the penny is going to be 394. Now the next question says, at what time does the penny reach its maximum height? So I already found that out because 3 the x value of my ordered pair. That means at 3 seconds, because 3 is the x value of my vertex, is my highest point. So at 3 seconds, I'm going to reach 394 feet. Now the next part, number 3, says, how much time will it take for the coin to hit the water? Okay, so ask us to round to the nearest hundredth. So here's what we're looking for. We're looking for the time to go from here to here. Okay, and how much time is it going to go from there to there? So what we need to do then is we're going to use our quadratic formula to find this, which is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all of that divided by 2a. All right, so that's what we're going to use to find my x-intercepts and to find out that time from start to finish. So if I come over here and I have the negative b. All right, and in this particular problem, the b value was 6, so I'm going to have 96 plus or minus 96 squared minus 4 times a, which is negative 16, times the c value, which is 250. That would be divided by 2a, which the a value here is negative 16. All right, so I have negative 96. So 96 squared is 9,216. And then these negatives all become positives. So that becomes plus 16,000. And all that divided by negative 32. Okay, so negative 96. And this is going to be 25,216. All right, so the square root of 25,216 rounded to the 100th position becomes a negative 96 plus or minus 158.8 divided by negative 32. So now we're looking for the zeros of my function, okay? So I have two equations here. I have negative 96 minus 158.8 divided by a negative 32. And when I do that math, I get an answer of 7.96 when I round to the 100th. Then my other answer here is a negative 96 plus 158.8. All of that divided by a negative 32. So when I do that math, I get an answer of a negative 1.96. Now, since time is positive, okay, and we're simply looking at our traveling distance, okay, my answer is going to be 7.96. All right. So when I come over here, it's going to be 7.96 because time is always positive, and I'm looking for exactly where I start right up here and travel to there. Okay, so 7.96. Okay, so this one says, a ball is thrown upward from the ground. Its h in feet is given by the function h of x equals a negative 16x squared plus 4x, where t is the length of time in seconds the ball has been in the air. Okay, actually that should be x. All right, so what is the height, the maximum height the ball reaches? So again, this is just like the one we just did, okay, is because I have a negative a value, I already know my parabola is going to be opening downward. Okay, so my vertex is going to be my highest point right up here. Okay, so to find that vertex, I need to start with x equals a negative b divided by 2a. So same thing, a negative b here is going to be 64. Okay, negative b over 2a. So a negative 64 divided by a negative 32 is going to equal 2. So I know that after 2 seconds, my ball is going to reach its maximum height. Okay? So what I need to do next then is take the 2 and substitute it back into the function every place I see the x. So I'm going to have here the h of x. So negative 16 times 4 this time, plus 64 times 2, which is 128. So let me do that on my calculator, which becomes h of x equals a negative 64 plus 128. So a negative 64 plus 128 tells me that 64 is going to be the answer. Okay, so the height is 64. The maximum height the ball reaches is going to be 64. All right, so then at what time does the ball reach its height? Well, we already found that out when we found our x value, which is going to be 2 seconds. All right, so then the final question, number 6, is how does the ball stay in the air? So again, we're looking for when the ball is thrown, okay, and we're looking for that total time. So we're looking for from there to there, okay, for that total time to see how long the ball stays in the air. So what we're going to do then is let's go over here and let's write out our negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all that divided by 2a. So again, my b value here is going to be a negative 64 plus or minus the square root of 64 squared minus 4 times a negative 16. Now there is no c value, so we'll just times a negative 16, all that divided by 2 times a negative 16. So 64 squared is 4,096. So 2 negatives make a positive, so 4,096 plus 64, all that divided by negative 32. So we're going to have negative 64 plus or minus the square root of 4,160, all of that divided by negative 32. So now, when I find the square root of 4,160, I am left with the negative 64 plus or minus, and this one, it doesn't say what to round to, so I'm just going to round to the 10. So I'm going to get 64.5. And all that divided by negative 32. So remember, I've got two math problems here. So I have a negative 64 plus 64 and a half divided by negative 32. And then I also have negative 64 minus 64 and a half divided by negative 32. All right, so when I find the answer to the first one, I end up with a decimal that says a negative 0.0. So basically, I'm just going to round and use the number 0, 1, because 0 is neither negative nor positive. Okay? And then my next one is the negative 64 plus 6 or minus 64 and a half. And then divide that entirely by negative 32. And I end up with 4.01562. So I'll just round that to 4. So again, I have 0 and 4. So that tells me I travel from 0 to 4. So that means my time is going to be 4 seconds. Seconds in the air. So from start to finish, that little yellow line right here would be 4 seconds. Okay, so I hope this has helped you. And if you need additional help, you can come up on Google Meet with me and I will help you there. Have a good day.